want to talk about Shavuos, but they're telling me as the year is rapidly approaching its end, there are important things to talk about before you go back. And if we cover enough of them, then maybe we'll talk about Shavuos before next week, or before Shavuos, that is. Well, there are many different things to discuss. The most important message that Aish wants to get across, and what we really hope you picked up here, aside from basic things like Hashem is really there, mitzvahs really make a difference, halach is true, halach is real, details make a difference. Hopefully you develop attitudes of Beit Allah Chavero. Hopefully you improved your skills, you have more of a relationship with learning. Hopefully you know what you live for. But there's one other very important thing. And that's an understanding that every Jew has responsibility for Klal Yisrael. The Rambam writes that every Jew is commanded in the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, the Rambam explains, is to publicize emunah. And then the Rambam gives us a whole list of what's included in Kiddush Shem Shemayim. The most extreme example is giving your life for what you believe in. And by the way, the Rambam begins by saying, Kol Yisrael, every Jew. Because, we're accustomed to reading stories about these people that gave their lives when they were given the choice. They gave their lives rather than compromise on their principles. And we write books about them. The Rambam says, yeah, they're great. But Kol Yisrael, every Jew has that chiyuv. It's not just for individuals. Not just for the greatest, the greatest. Not just Rabbi Akiva. Kol Yisrael, everybody. And certainly when it's not a matter of life and death, but it's a matter of making difficult decisions. The stakes are high. Whether it's sacrificing physical comfort, emotional comfort, money. Our values come first. When it comes to giving your life, there are rules of when you do, when you don't. When it comes to everything else, every Torah commandment requires you, excuse me, to give up just about everything but your life. You don't break Isurim for money. But okay, that's heavy stuff. Then the Rambam goes further. And he talks about the need to be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim in the way we behave. It has to be clear that an Orthodox Jew has integrity. You're straight. The way you deal with people. You're not difficult. Maso matono benachas im habrios. You care about people. You're there for them. You're not one of those difficult people that everyone has to dance around. You certainly don't do anything that you know is wrong and everyone around you knows you shouldn't be doing. This is a mitzvah d'oraisa of an ikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. Now, this includes being a Kiddush Hashem among other Orthodox Jews, even if that's not the way they live. But showing them that there are still people who live authentically. Who are not ready to cut corners when it's inconvenient. Every Jew that lives by higher standards is inspiring people around them and being Mekadesh Shem Shamayim. When I say higher standards, I'm not talking about big chumras or something or other. Authentic values means things that are clear-cut. Clear-cut halacha that perhaps people otherwise don't especially keep because they're uncomfortable with it. Tznius in dress, tznius in behavior. It's so common for people to do things that are wrong. And it's a breath of fresh air when there's someone around that's not like that. And it's a reminder that Jewish values are real. And they're not archaic. They're not for the cavemen. And they actually create for a healthier lifestyle. And they make for happier people. I know what you plan doing this summer, I know what you plan doing when you come back, but anyone who's going to find themselves in some kind of work environment, first of all, do your job. Chazal tell us, Chanoch, back in Sefer Bereshis. He was a cobbler, he was a shoemaker. And it says he was miyachid yechudim. He used to put the names of Hashem together when he was making the shoes. He was a big tzaddik. And Rabbi Yisrael Salanter always used to say, what was this first thing that he put together? To make sure that his shoes were really good and would last. That's more fundamental than combining all the different shemas of Hashem and flying up to heaven. Your first responsibility when you take on any kind of work is to see to it that there's a very clear job description and that you fulfill it. By the way, the Chavetz Chaim writes, the more clear the job description, preferably in writing, the fewer machlokas you're left with. Oral agreements people forget. Furthermore, when something's put to writing, it's concrete. People often don't express themselves well. When they have to write it, they write exactly what they mean. And if you don't quite understand it, then you ask them before you start the job. B'mekadesh Shem Shamayim means you don't walk home, you don't go home with I don't know, what stuff do people take home today from the office? And the Rambam discusses at length the importance of integrity when you're working for somebody else. Not wasting time. Not spending your day on the phone for your own personal phone calls. Not doing your shopping during the job. The next thing is your behavior. Understand the difference between being polite and either wasting a lot of time in conversation or just improperly socializing with men. See some guy enjoys talking to you. Don't be flattered. Understand what he's doing is wrong. Avoid him. Or just tell him straight out you're not interested. The Rambam gives a whole description of how one dresses, meaning one of the considerations. First thing is that you dress respectably. And when you dress casually, just be respectable. And then don't overdress. You don't dress up to go to work in a way that's overdone. And whether you're thinking that way or not, it definitely attracts people's attention. And communicates all sorts of things that you don't really want to communicate. Came up when we were doing Bein Adam L'Chavero, but in the workplace, if they're trying to get you involved in some kind of scheme that is sheker, it's either false, or basically it's theft. Don't be an accomplice to a white-collar crime. Stand up for your values. If you know something's wrong, say so. If you're not sure, go find out. Aside from halacha, this is also a matter of chilul Hashem. And if you may have to lose a job over this, that's kiddush shem shamayim. I guess on our level today, it would be the equivalent of Rabbi Akiva being tortured to death because he believes in Hashem. Because he's teaching Torah in public. Yes, and in terms of vacations, you don't go home with all the towels. I don't quite get why people do that. What is it? You have a collection? I mean, come on, your towels at home are probably a lot cozier than the stuff you get in a hotel. I don't know, why do people come home with a whole packet of, a whole carton of sugar packets? Why do they come home? Why do they do that? That's part of vacation is not exciting enough without it. Maybe someone enlighten me. I just don't get it. And then in the family, I think the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, you spent sort of a year here, to go back and just be the best daughter, sister, granddaughter, the best you can be. I'm sure you've developed sensitivities you never had before. And part of that involves being a more caring, more self-aware person. That's all part of Kiddush Shem Shamayim. So this is really the first part. The second one is actually bringing the Shem Shamayim to people around you. The people around you so desperately need to learn what you learned here. Choosing the setting for that is complicated. You know, if it's realistic and you want to study something with a friend, that's wonderful. That may or may not go over. And make sure that when it comes to your old friends, you don't try to overburden them and turn the relationship into trying to push a little more religion on them. First and foremost, you've got to be a better friend. But where you think there may be an opportunity, bring it up. Don't be embarrassed. Some of the things you learned here are of prime importance to living one's life. I'm sure so many of the attitudes you've developed over this year are life-changing. They were life-changing. Just don't scare people away. Don't be intimidating. Don't be judgmental. But any opportunity to share the ideas, of course, cushioned in everything else you do together. This is not instead of having a good time. This is along with having a good time. And then wherever you have an opportunity, certainly to teach, if that's possible, even like being a big sister to girls a year or two younger than you, where you're allowed to share things with them that you learned here. Where they understand that you're wiser and have more life experience than them. There's so many directionless kids out there. I'm sure you know them. Is there anything you do to help them? First and foremost, to befriend them and to help steer them in the right direction. I understand personalities are different, but you have to get used to the idea of speaking up. We have a lot to be proud of. There's nothing to be embarrassed of in Torah. And any opportunity you have, to share an authentic value or attitude with people that don't have it, don't pass it up. Be proud.
How does the Yeshiva think is the best way to go about people that have like a strong pushback. Like they ask for your opinion, and then you share it, and then they have a strong pushback on it.
The first thing is don't get into a debate with them. It ends up getting personal, and it doesn't go in the right direction. Hold your own and smile. You didn't get the message. Hold your own and smile. And when they start with the insults about Torah or whatever, and some people are very outspoken and they say things they don't really want to say. The problem is we get emotional about it. We get drawn into a debate you don't want to get into. You have to learn to be able to just repeat what it is that we stand for and what we know is right and smile. And that does it. Doesn't mean you're going to convince them. But that should be enough. I've seen over the years, sometimes it's hard. I mean, it's so difficult to hear the way people talk and where they act. I remember once giving a class to, this was a very left-wing group many years ago. I mean, they were ahead of their times. A fellowships group, people that knew absolutely nothing that we got here because it was a cheap trip to Israel. And I started doing a little piece of Rambam with them. And I challenged them. And they were a bit intimidated. And guys start tearing up the page of the Rambam. I'm standing there. How do I not lose it? I'm watching a bunch of Jewish kids tearing up pages of Rambam. You get excited, forget about it. You have to keep your cool, regardless of what people are doing. And you got to remember, either they're reacting emotionally to something which has nothing to do with the subject matter being discussed, or they've got a problem. And don't take it personally, as much as it hurts, as painful as it is. Don't take it personally. Just restate what you said and smile. And that's it. Some people want to get you like all worked up about it. They have a great time with that. So don't give them that pleasure. And the key is not getting into debates. There's so much that people don't know. A very important thing is when people misquote halachas, people misquote principles, or the way Jews live. Well, you do have to set them straight. And just let them know it's not true. Yeah.
Rosh Hashanah that this includes family as well, like parents.
With parents, it has to be done very respectfully. Very, very respectfully. You're better off letting a parent get away with something than get into an argument with them. It's very difficult for parents whose kids seem to know things they don't know, or are living things that they don't. They feel so judged. They feel so not respected. Avoid that. Avoid that. Even if they say terrible things. Family is complicated. The most important thing to do with family is just be a great family man. Your family should feel like they enjoy being around you more than ever before. I hope you're going back happier people with a better sense of, one of the most common reasons for people being unhappy is because they're directionless. They don't know what they stand for. They don't know what they live for. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what's important to them in life. Hopefully you've gotten all of that now. You should be happy and settled. No, we're not Nevi'im. No one knows where life will take you. No one knows what opportunities will come up. But you understand where you want to go. You know that regardless of what you happen, where are you going to end up residing? Where are you going to end up living? What's your husband going to look like? What's he going to be doing for a living? You don't know. But you know what is important to you. In that respect, you should be settled and happy and calm. With friends, it's a lot easier. One of the most important things that you've got to really make use of and develop is your sense of humor. Some of the most difficult situations, where the atmosphere is so cold, where everyone is so worked up, a good, funny line will change everything. A good sense of humor is part of being Jewish. Chazal are filled with statements that were made the way they were for the sake of getting us to smile. Developing your sense of humor is part of being Jewish. I don't just mean for wasting everyone's time with funny jokes. I don't mean that. Of being able to use humor to diffuse the highly charged situations. And keep developing your tact. With time, your social skills should keep growing. This is all part of being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. I know it sounds funny, but this is all part of being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. And then, of course, your life goals. Don't forget them. Don't get caught up in everything else that's going on there. Don't get caught up in the world where the goals in life are all material. They're all materialistic. The luxuries are nice to have, but you're okay without them. Got to remember that. You can be happy without them. They're available, why not? You don't make sacrifices for them. You're okay without them. It's Hashem bringing up your kids. Make sure that you're not communicating to them that materialism is what it's all about. You know, as much as you're going to send them off to whatever schools you do, the foundations of everything kids believe in come from the home. I'm sure you've experienced all that yourselves. The most important attitudes on life are generally communicated by mothers. Got to be aware of that. It's not through formal education. It's the things you talk about, it's the way you talk about things, and it's the way you live your life. That's where your kids get their most basic values from. So yeah, it's got to be a Kiddush Hashem to everyone around you. Beginning with family, extending to friends, to people at work, to wherever you go, whatever you do. And care about Klal Yisrael, see what you can do. Okay, that's the message. Any questions? Yeah.
Is it better to work in if you get a job off of not a Jewish environment? Is it okay to take that job, or should you always look for a Jewish environment?
You know, it's so much better, and it's so much better in a frum environment. It's so much better. Not always. Not always. The food will be kosher. You know, but not necessarily the way everyone behaves. And you're also off guard when you're among frum people. Then when you're among the non-frum, you may be much more aware of the dangers. And when you're among frum people, you're much more vulnerable because, you know, your guard is down. Yeah.
Is there any issue with selling like non-kosher food or non-sneeze clothing if you're like marketing it to non-religious people, but doesn't mean that Jews will buy it?
There are, first of all, in terms of non-kosher food, there's an isser of doing business with non-kosher food. So, you know, even if you're selling to non-Jews, the halacha is that you're allowed to do it on a one-time basis. For example, someone accidentally buys non-kosher food. They're allowed to sell it. They don't have to destroy it. But you're not supposed to make that your business. Some hold that it's an isser d'oraisa even. In terms of not sneeze clothing, who says that it's right for non-Jews to be non-sneeze? You know, the Torah refers to all of this as the chukas hagoy. You know, they live by your morality, but they shouldn't be. I don't think one should. I don't think it's proper to be involved in selling non-sneeze clothing, even though technically speaking, it doesn't say anywhere that that's one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. But even to sell to non-Jews, I don't think we should be doing that. That what we're promoting is them living a lifestyle that we know is just not right. Yeah.
What does the Rosh Yeshiva suggest the best way for mothers to convey those important attitudes and values over to their children?
First of all, be open about it. Talk about it. Talk about Hashem. I know we get inhibited, we feel a little uncomfortable. Get used to talking about Hashem. Your kids should hear about Hashem from the youngest age. They should know He's the one we turn to. He's the one that provides. He's the one that can make the difference. He's the one that controls everything. He loves us. These are things, Hashem loves us. Kids have to know that. This is in terms of communicating. When your kids are young, it's important that they hear you making brachas out loud. Even if you wouldn't otherwise, you're embarrassed or whatever, in front of your own kids, they should hear you making brachas out loud. They have to know that their mom makes brachas. And if it sounds like you're even having kavanah for what you're saying, that's even better. I know among the things that really affected me growing up is that every dish that went on the fire and every cake that went in the oven came with my mother talking to Hashem. And then, of course, Shabbos, Yom Tov. And don't complain.